Hello everyone, welcome back to Classic Automotive Services. This week we've got some paintwork to show you. We've had a little Vauxhall Astra come in for the bonnet to be painted, as we do a lot of paintwork and bodywork. The car had previously been to another body shop to have some work done, which was done quite poorly. The owner wasn't very happy with it, and they also done a full machine polish on the car and actually done a lot more damage than they actually rectified. I've got plenty of photographs of it to show you, as we didn't video actually painting, as we didn't want overspray getting over our equipment. But the bonnet, what they'd done is when they'd polished it, don't quite get how they done it so badly, but they'd really badly burnt the lacquer and burnt through in massive areas. When they were polishing it, I really don't know how they done it. Stevie Wonder could have done a better job. And before I was interrupted, what I was saying, I don't know how they polished it so badly. Stevie Wonder could have done a better job, to be honest. They burnt the lacquer that badly in such a vast, big area. When you're polishing it, surely you should be looking at what you're doing, and you'd notice straight away that it's starting to not go as you planned. But they continued and completely wrecked the bonnet, as you'll see from the photographs. But if we look at the car, it's a bit messy at the moment because it's not been cleaned or anything like that. Repainted the bonnet. There's a bug on there. Get off. We've repainted the bonnet and sorted it all out. It's now out in the nice sunshine that we're having at the moment, baking. Got it painted yesterday, and it's just going to be left till next week before I flat and polish it. There's a few dust nibs and that in it need coming out, which I can flat it back and polish it, and hopefully be able to record that, because it's not that hard to do, and it's also not that messy like painting this itself. So we'll record flattening and polishing it, and then we'll fully valet the car, clean it all up again, so the owner can pick it up next weekend. But that's the Astra, and we'll put the photographs in of the paintwork in different stages. I've got some photographs of as it was before, masked up and prepped, base coated and then lacquered. So we'll put them in on the video. But for this week's primary video, we've got the oil pump on my Dolomite Sprint engine, which we're going to go through. So we're going to go strip the oil pump and measure it. I'm going to show you what to look out for, and also what not to do and what not to buy when you buy an oil pump, because you shouldn't really buy one oil pump for these. Always try and find an original one. So let's go and have a look at the oil pump. I have the oil pump for my Dolomite Sprint engine that I'm building. This is an original Holborn Eaton oil pump. You need one that says on here Holborn Eaton. They're the original pumps, the best you can get. You do not want a new one made by County. Stay well clear. I've seen the County oil pumps, and I've also seen them completely destroy engines. With the County oil pumps, they're machined so badly. It's, well, they're not even worth using as a paperweight. One of the ones that I saw, the oil pressure relief valve, which is inside here, which we'll show you in a minute when we strip it down, actually stuck open and dropped all the oil pressure out and completely destroyed a brand new engine, which wasn't good. When the engine was stripped down, it actually looked like the crankshaft had been hacked around with an angle grinder. That's how bad it was. The second one I've seen was the oil pressure relief valve. Luckily it stuck shut, which made the oil pressure relief valve was far too long, and the car was running somewhere in the realms of about 100 psi oil pressure, and it was pushing oil out of every orifice it could. So stay well clear of County oil pumps. The whole bonnet heating pump is a very good pump. The only critical bit on the whole bonnet heating pumps that you have to check is the outer rotor to the body clearance. If that's too big, again, unfortunately your pump will be scrapped. It's no good. But find another second-hand pump and go from there. I've never actually come across one yet where the clearance out body clearance is too big. This may be the first one, we'll find out. But let's strip it down and see what we've got inside. You have to excuse a helicopter going past. Alright. You've got 2 screws holding it together. They can sometimes be extremely tight and seized in, but these ones have come undone. And here we have the inside of the pump. Let's give that a quick wipe. In here is where the oil pressure relief valve is, behind this bung. We'll get that out in a minute. You've got your spring and you've got your actual valve in there. This cap's not too bad, considering this engine had a bearing failure. It's not actually that bad at all. I've seen a lot worse. Yeah, it's not too bad. But you do have to face these. You need to face that. That is one critical thing when you're rebuilding a pump. So get a nice flat, anything will do. That part of your vise, a nice big flat piece of wood, and something like a bit of 240 grit, wet and dry, some WD-40, and then just face it down, keep an even pressure on it until that is completely smooth and there's no score in it, as these scores will lower your oil pressure dramatically. We'll strip that in a minute. Then you have an O-ring, which annoyingly doesn't actually come in the gasket sets. You have to buy it separate. But never reuse the old one. Can't actually get that out. You just use a flick feeler gauge to flick it out. That's well, it's really stuck in there. There we go. There we go. Always replace your O-ring. Never chance it. Here we've got the inner and outer rotors. Basically all it does is it spins, it sucks oil through one, compresses it around the pump, blows it out the other. Very simple and very effective. Another thing you need to look out for, especially with the county pumps, is your drive. The county pumps, I've come across them quite a few times where you put a drive in there and there is a lot of backlash in them where they're not machined correctly. That one's pretty good. Tiniest bit of wear on that shaft, which is more polished than worn. You can't actually feel it. So that's pretty good. But again, on the county pumps, I've seen them where they're slopping around and they chatter and they're no good. So we'll give this a quick wipe down and measure it up. Get that out. Again, when you're putting these back together, you may think that that can go either way up. It can't. On this face here, on one edge side, you have a slight chamfer on that corner. The other side is square. Chamfer goes down into the pump body. Let's give it a wipe out. Get rid of any old stuff in there. And looking at that, this pump body, it isn't going to be worn. That's like new. It's not going to be worn. I can say that from inspection. It's not even touched it. Slightest bit of mark in there. I can barely feel it though. That'll be fine. So, just slide it back together. And we'll measure it up. I've got an original Triumph book, original Leyland book. Gives you all your clearances that you need for the oil pump. And if you've got any of them clearances which are bigger than what this says, don't use a pump. You need to rebuild it. You can get new inner outer rotors for them, so you rebuild it. So the first one we're going to check is going to be the outer body to the outer rotor clearance. It shouldn't be any more than 8 thou, I think it says. Outer pump body to, yep, 8 thou. So I can't even get an 8 thou in there, which is excellent. I reckon that's probably going to be about a 4. There we go. It's a nice 4 thou. And when you're measuring with feeler gauges, you don't want it to be a tight push fit. You don't want it to be sloppy. You just need it so it literally is a nice grip fit. I'm putting no pressure onto that to put it in. It pretty much just holds in. But it's literally just a nice slip fit. So that is 4 thou. That's well in spec. Next one we're going to check is the inner rotor to outer rotor clearance. To do that, you turn the pump so it's on this part here, so between there and there. That should be road bloater clearance no more than 10 thou. And when you're building these pumps, you want to get the tolerances as tight as you possibly can. The tighter the clearances are, within reason, the better it's going to be, and the more pressure and the more it's going to flow. 5 thou goes in a little bit easy. Pardon me, let's try 6. It's probably going to be 6 or 7 by the feel of that. 7. No, 7's too tight. I can't get 7 in there. I can, if I push it, I can just get 7 in. Which obviously, as I just said, isn't the right way to measure it. So 6. There we go. 6. They're nice. Just feel it gripping either side. 7's too tight. 6 is the tiniest bit loose, so that's probably 6.5 thou. Yeah, I can't quite get a 7 in there. I mean, you have to check the others too. So, move it around. Again, can't get a 7 in there. Try 6. 6. Good. That's 2 of them. 6 is a little tiniest bit loose. That's a tight 7. And the last one. Can't get 7 in there. 6 is nice. So the rotors themselves are actually perfectly in clearance. There is one more we have to check, because they do sometimes have a habit of wearing the base and they sink into the pump. Again, that's not hard to fix. The critical one that you can't fix is if the pump body itself is worn between that and that face there. You can't fix that. You could try putting different rotors in it and see if that brings it back into tolerance. But if they have dropped into the pump a little bit, it's not a big job. You can do the same as you can do with the cap, and that's face the pump body down a little bit. But we'll check that now. Just like that in the vise. So end float needs to be outer ring end float, inner ring end float, no more than 4 thou. So there's our 4. Get yourself a nice straight edge. Make sure it's clean. Put it across your pump. Can't get 4 under there, so that's well within tolerance. Let's see what we have actually got. I'm probably going to say it's around 2 as a guess. 2 and a 2.5 there. Two goes under. There we go. 2.5 is a nice grip. I would have thought 3 is probably too tight. It's actually lifting the straight edge slightly. 3 is tight. Yeah, it's pretty much. Yes, it's 3 thou. Yep, that's 3 thou. So that is perfectly within spec. Let's have a look at the actual tips of the rotors, because that's another common problem. You very often get bad scoring on the edge of the rotor tips. No, they're good. Slight bit of polishing where it's been run. That's really good, to be honest. It's one of the best pumps I've actually stripped, especially on an engine that's had an engine failure. There's the shampoo. There it is. So that is perfect in tolerance. So all I'm going to do with this is give it a really good thorough clean up, inside and out, thoroughly degrease it, place the O-ring, and that's good to go. With these oil pumps, you don't need to pack them with Vaseline. If you have to pack it with Vaseline to get oil pressure up on this design pump, you've got an issue somewhere. Just build up with some engine assembly lube. I'm going to use this one, which is good stuff. It's Miller's engine assembly lube, very good. Build up some of that, and then when you come to fit it on the engine, just pour some oil in, fit it on the engine, do it up, and that will prime itself absolutely perfectly every time. So we'll try and get this relief valve out and see what that state that's like, because they can sometimes give issues as well. Get a bit of wear in them. So I'll just grab a screwdriver and see if we can pair of pliers. Right, we'll try and get this relief valve out. They can sometimes be a right pain in the ass to get them out. That's not going to come out of there. Just turn that. There we go. The only thing that holds the relief valve in is this split pin. So again, never reuse the old one. Replace it. If that snaps for any reason or comes out, the oil pressure will push this cap out. Bang! You've lost all your oil pressure, and you'll wreck your engine. So let's try and get it out. Actually, that's coming out fairly easy. There we go. There's your cap. Got a little O-ring on it, which again will be replaced. Give it a wipe down. There's your cap with your O-ring. And then we got the relief valve spring. Again, the book does give you specifications for the free length on the relief valve spring, but I will be putting a new one in. I'm probably going to put a slightly uprated one in it as it's a race engine, to give it a slight bit more oil pressure. And here's the plunger. Now, hopefully this is an original one. The original ones were actually chrome plated. There we go. It's a bit dirty. Let's just wipe that. You can see the plating on it. You just see the shiny chrome plating. Well, I've just wiped it. So they're chrome plated because chrome is extremely hard and doesn't wear that easily. So that all looks to be in really good condition. Give it a bit of a wipe out. Check it. Unfortunately, you guys aren't going to be able to see in here. But inside there, you've got a seat which the relief valve sits in. And if there's any scoring or any marking in it, again, you're going to have to replace that. You have to find another cap or another pump and start with that. That one looks all good. So that is the complete oil pump, stripped and measured, and it's all perfectly in spec. Cap's got to be faced, replace the seals. I'm going to put a new relief valve spring in it. Just out of curiosity, what should it be? I'll roughly measure it. Where we go? Outer relief valve spring length. Relief valve spring free length should be 43.18 millimeters. So we'll just roughly measure it. Just rotate that round. And that's actually coming out at just over 44 millimeters. So that's probably a good spring. It means it hasn't had a lot of abuse. But there's no telling if it's actually, there's still the right tension. Although the free length is good, it could be a bit softer than over the years. They get worn, they get a bit fatigued, it could soften, it might not be the correct tension anymore. So for my engine and any customer's engine that I do, I will always replace the relief valve spring. Again, I never take anything for granted. Even when I buy a new part, it will be checked, make sure it's measured correctly. I'll measure it with a vernier, not a ruler, to make sure it is the correct length before it goes in. That is the oil pump for my Dolomite engine, which I'm actually really impressed with. It's a really good pump. So that will be completely cleaned, everything will be faced, and it will be rebuilt with new O-rings and ready to be put on the engine. Oh, pardon me. So like I said earlier, when it comes to oil pumps, stick with the original pump if you can. If you can't, if it is too worn, try and find another original hole-beneath oil pump. Stay clear of anything to do with County, especially on the Triumphs. It's this rubbish. County do a lot of parts of the Triumph engines. They do the bearings, oil pumps, just about everything you can think of for them. And every single part I've ever had from them, or had anything to do with, has been such poor quality that I've never used it. I've sent it back, and I now just don't use them because they're, well, I like to build good engines, not engines which are going to do a few hundred miles and go bang, or give issues. So stick with the original pump. So that's the oil pump. So I'll roughly put that back together because I haven't got the seals for it yet. I just wanted to check it to see if I needed to source another pump. Well, I wouldn't need to source one. I've got one on the shelf. I've got another engine which I could check. But I just wanted to check it out to start with before I made any decision, went and got any parts for it. So that's the oil pump. Another thing I'm going to show you is, I mentioned the other day about the conrods being balanced end for end, and a lot of people don't realise what that means. So I'm going to grab a couple of pistons and rods and show you what I mean by that, as it's the only true way to balance a conrod. When you balance conrods end for end, first of all, if you're going to balance a conrod, it's no good doing it before they're machined. You always have to do it after it's been machined. And these ones, they are going to have new ARP conrod studs fitted to it. The torque wrench setting's different, so that can throw out the tolerance on your big end. So they will be new studs fitted in, torqued to the right specification, and then they'll be honed to size to make sure they're completely round. After that, that's when they get balanced. And the way you do it to start with, obviously you've got the piston on it, so that's easy for now. You'd have a little jig and a digital set of scales. The piston will be supported, well, the little end, in this case the piston, will be supported off the scales, and then you put the big end on the scales and then write it down. I'll tell you what weight that is. Then you do the next one, and they will be different, they always are. You do all that with your big ends, write all the figures down, and you then balance all the rest of the rods are all heavier. You weigh the same amount as the lightest one. Then what you do the other end. You support the big end, put the little end on the scales, obviously without the piston on it. So you put the little end on the scales and do exactly the same again. Once you've balanced the big end and the little end, and most con rods, especially the older style ones like these Triumph ones, have got this big balancing pad on them. So what it's there for, you remove material off of here to get the weight down. Same on the little end. On the little end you've got a bit of a pad which you can take it off as well. Once you've done both ends, you can then weigh your con rod overall. And again, they might be a little bit out. So if they are out, you can then start just removing a little bit off the flashing here on both sides. You don't want to go mad because it's weakening the con rod, but you can literally just take a little bit off the middle of the rod on the flashing, because by the time you've done end for end, they're not going to be too far out, and get them so they all weigh the same. Again, then when you balance your pistons, you balance the piston with when you balance pistons, you fit the gudgeon pin with your clips and your piston rings after you file fit the piston rings to fit the bore. So them rings then always stay with that piston. You then weigh the whole assembly. Once you've done that, again you write down all your figures, and you make the heaviest pistons weigh the same amount as the lightest piston, and you remove material from inside anywhere you can where there's extra little bits of casting. These pads, just take a little bit off here and there so they get the weight the same. If you haven't got a set of scales, one thing you can do is you can bolt your con rods together. If you've got some big washers, you can bolt your con rods together and then have them on a pair of V-blocks, and it will go one way or the other. It'll balance, and you can. It's just a lot easier with a set of scales, but you can do it by bolting them together. You won't get it anywhere near as accurate without scales, but if you roughly want to balance them, you can get them so they sit nice and horizontal. If one's down, you know you've got that one's heavier than that one. Then again vice versa, you can do it the same with your little ends. Bolt them together and balance them that way. That's if you haven't got a set of scales and you don't want to go through the trouble of having a set of scales. But the price of a set of digital scales these days, it's not really worth messing around like that. So to get yourself a set of digital scales and do it properly. But that is the oil pump for the Dolomite engine. As you can probably tell, I'm starting to plan the engine and bits and bobs on the engine. Hopefully very shortly the crankshaft's going to be knife edged. Once it's been knife edged, I can then have the crankshaft hopefully just polished. Hopefully it's not going to need a grind. Once I've had it polished or possibly ground, then I can have it back and do a dummy build on the engine. I can put the crankshaft in it with a piston and rod. Check my deck height, and what I mean by deck height is when the piston's at top dead centre, where it's sitting in relation to the bore. A lot of engines sit, so if my hand's the bore, at the top of the block, a lot of engines have it just slightly down. As I'm going for a high performance race engine, I'm actually going to run a couple of thou jut out on the piston, so the piston is going to be probably 3 thou proud of the bore. And I need to get the crank done first, so I can then work out how much it's got to be skimmed off the block. Once I've worked that out, I can then send the block away to be skimmed, acid dipped. The crankshaft can then be fully balanced with the flywheel and front pulley, and I can have all the rest of the machine work done in one go to build the bottom end. A little bit time consuming, but unfortunately when you're building a high performance engine, it is time consuming. That's why high performance race engines cost so much money to build, because you're paying not only for the parts that you put in, you're paying for the labour to have it built, and all the time measuring and everything else. So it takes a lot of money to build a good engine. Anyone can throw an engine together, whether it'll last or not, who knows. You might be lucky and it goes on for thousands of miles. You might be unlucky and it does 10 miles on the road and chucks a rod through the block. But to build an engine properly, you need to check everything, every single clearance. When I come to build this, I'll be checking the clearance between the big end bearing and the crankshaft journal. Same with the main bearings. All the clearance will be checked and measured to make sure that they're 100% where I need them. And that's the only way you can be confident that you're going to be able to push the engine to where you want it to go. But that's hopefully a bit of technical information on the oil pumps for you. I hope you all found it useful. If you've got any questions, is there anything you don't think I have covered with the oil pump, please let us know. I can't think of anything that I've missed. But yeah, if you've got any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. So contact us and let us, and we'll give you advice if you're not sure on anything. So unfortunately that's it for this week. Next week we'll be flattening and polishing the paintwork and showing you how to flat paintwork back, get rid of dustness if you've got dustness in paintwork, and polish it back to a mirror finish, which could be an interesting video. So we'll see you next week. Please like and subscribe. Thank you very much.